Hello, I'm Bill McDonald of the Charlotte County Libraries and History, and this is Center Stage Charlotte County. And our guest today is Sherrie Moody, who's the Executive Director of the Charlotte Players Community Theater. Welcome, Sherrie.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
And the show's called Center Stage, and here we are on stage.
We truly are.
If you can just tell us, we have sets here. It must be a big production coming up.
It is. It's a production we have running here soon in the Langdon Playhouse. It's our wonderful little black box theater. And as you said, we are here on stage. The set just got completed yesterday, so timing is everything. The show's going to run for 2 weeks, as most of our productions do that run in the fall. When we get into snowbird season, oftentimes these run 3 different weekends, but that's what this one's called. Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, which I know tells you nothing at all about the show.
It's a great title, though.
That's right. So I encourage people to go to our website to find out more.
Absolutely. And as you know, Sherrie, this is Charlotte County Centennial, so we're discussing a lot about the origins of things. What is the origin of the Charlotte Players? How did that start? Actually,
if everybody knows the Cultural Center, who resides in this area, that there initially was a little building out, which is now the Cultural Center's education and box office. But that was the start of what they then called Port Charlotte University. And we started from an acting class that, was created there, and then eventually turned into the Charlotte Players.
So the big bang of the Charlotte Players was an acting class.
It was indeed.
Wow,
yeah.
That's incredible. Now, tell me a little bit about your background and how you became Executive Director of the Charlotte Players.
Bill, I've been here almost in January. I've been here 16 years. Wow. Okay. So I was asked, after I was the theater manager at the Cultural Center once upon a time, and had done some internship work at the Charlotte Performing Arts Center. So I was doing that when I received a call from the Charlotte Players asking if I was interested in working here. So it was kind of a out of the blue call that turned out to be, it was a good call to answer. So yeah, so we perform in multiple locations, but we've really found this building to be our home. We purchased this in 2010, and we've done multitude of remodels to the building, and so now we're comfortable.
Very nice, this Langdon Playhouse. I've often wondered, how is a play selected? Do you want to do a certain play? What's the mechanics of making that possible to be able to perform for your following season?
Actually, it's pretty extensive. We have a play reading committee that's usually comprised of a couple of our board members and then a couple actors, some members at large participate in that. They usually start about July, and each individually read as many as about 80 different stage productions. Wow. Then in September, they all come together with about a list of their top 15, which is then reduced further down to the board. They have to submit their selections to the board, and they usually give us about somewhere between 12 and 15 shows that the board knows that in November they're going to have to vote on. Sure. So the board then has the opportunity to read every one of these scripts that's now on that list. In fact, in the office, they're all laid out for board members to come in because it does take a while. And then they will vote again in November on what the selections are. We also have a couple alternates because there's no guarantees that you're going to actually get a show. We have one that we have attempted to get 3 seasons in a row, and we can't get the royalties to it because it's going to be on national tour. Then they pull back the rights for individual community theaters. So there's a lot of quirkiness that goes to it. They also look at the number of people in the cast. They look at how many scene changes there are and whether, for instance, in this stage, whether they're capable of doing it. And the cost of the royalties can be very substantial. People have no idea how expensive it can be. So that there's, all facets that they have to look at.
Absolutely. Now, probably the number of people who are watching this may be aspiring actors and actresses. What is the auditioning process like, the casting process?
Sure. We, for every show that we pick, like in our Langdon series that we have, that's 8 shows this season, we have 2 audition nights. And they are, again, it's an evening activity. And in advance, they can come in and pick up a script so that they can peruse it. They can kind of select the character that they think they most, would want to be. And then oftentimes I tell people, if you've never done this before and you don't know this director, come in the first night and just watch.
Yeah.
Just so you get a feel, because every director is different the way they handle things. Yeah. They're giving what they call a set of sides. Sides are pages from the script, and those aren't available until the day or night of the auditions. So they sit there, people read from sides. It gives the opportunity for the director to, say it's a family situation. Looks become a part of this, trying to make a palette that truly looks like a family, in addition to their skills. So actors sometimes are disappointed that they didn't get a role. They feel that it's because of their ability to act, when in fact that may not be the reason at all. So we encourage people to come back. Sort
of matching with all the individuals that have already been cast.
Right. So then after that's done, we usually within that week will cast a show. We notify everybody whether they do have a part or whether they don't have a part. And again, encourage them to come back again should they have not been cast.
Wow.
They then go through about somewhere between a 6 and 8 week rehearsal period. Again, depending on the director, it depends on whether they rehearse during the week or on the weekends. Again, they take into account the availability of people, if they're working a full-time job, so we try and make it as easy as possible.
Now, you mentioned every director is different. How do you go about selecting a director for a certain production?
Well, we've been very fortunate. We've had some people around here that are real close, some that are actors who eventually developed into directors, but we have a program for that to happen. We just wouldn't take an actor who's never done it before and then said, okay, here, you're directing. So we have them shadow existing directors. We go to performances all over Southwest Florida. I say we, I do. And if I see a show and I really like the way it was done, I oftentimes will then contact that director to see if they have any interest. Often geographically, where they live, that does become an obstacle, especially in season if somebody's trying to drive north or south on I-75.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
that can be
so we have to take all that into consideration. Yes. But we do have a lot of talented people, a lot of people who have been involved in theaters all their lives professionally. If you see all the New York license plates, those people usually, they come
they retire to sunny Florida.
To sunny Florida and bring with them a wealth of talent.
Wow, that's great. And when people think of community theater and theater in general, they think of the actors and possibly the director, but who are some of the other unsung heroes of a production?
Well, definitely, as you look around at the set people. Our scenic designer, we have a wonderful resident scenic designer, Mr. Chris Smith, who's been with us now for, I'm guessing, about 6 or 7 years. So we depend on them, but we do have guest designers come in. Our last show, which was for Beekman, we had Bill Olson came in and did the set. So that gives Chris a little bit of a break, because just because we aren't having something here in the Langdon Playhouse doesn't mean we don't have performances elsewhere in the county. So we definitely need the professional people, as you mentioned. We need costumers. We need people, of course, who help us in the office. But say on this set, when you get a set built to a certain point, you need it painted. So we need painters to come in. If they're wonderful with a hammer, anybody who's involved in carpentry, there's a little love seat. Well, a volunteer might come in and Chris would say, can you build a love seat? So a lot of different talents. A costumer, not just a person who can put together an entire show, but oftentimes the script will denote a specialty piece. So it has to be a woman's dress in red or something. So we ask people to individually not be responsible for a whole show, but yet to do pieces like that. Marketing, we have wonderful people that help us distribute all the paraphernalia that we have printed. We kill many forests, we're so sorry, because we have a lot of printed material.
Sure.
So whatever someone's talent is, usually we could find a place here in our organizations for them. Because if it wasn't for our volunteers, we could not survive here.
Now, all your productions are wonderful, but are there any plays or productions that stand out in your memory over the last couple of years that just
It depends
all
on the kind of play it was. For instance, we for many, many years had our performances at the Cultural Center. When we had the ability to have a large stage, then we were doing large musicals. I remember Fiddler on the Roof, our last time out, was absolutely wonderful, as was Meet Me in St. Louis, The King and I, great productions. But when you come in here, because of the royalties, we can't charge our patrons $100 a seat to come in to watch a show, so that has a bearing on what we can produce. We do a lot of comedies, a lot of farces. One that we've done now repeatedly in the last 10 years is called Sex Please We're 60. It works wonderful for our residents who live here in Charlotte County, absolutely hysterical. And so those are the kind of shows that really stand out. This one that we're getting ready to do has more of a drama feel to it. It also depends on if it's a period piece. The one we just did for Beekman was a throwback to the 60s, which was really fun for the actors. We had younger cast members who, when given a rotary phone, had no idea what to do with it. And it was like, well, just once? No, you have to do it. So a little bit of teaching they had to be involved with that, too. It was just, you remember those kinds of shows.
Yeah.
And the throwbacks on the clothes were really fun.
How to wear a headband.
Oh, everything. Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
For an audience member, Sherrie, how is seeing live theater different from maybe watching something on Netflix or putting their favorite DVD or watching their favorite television show?
It's a different experience. It really is. And I invite anybody who has not been to theater, come try it out once. Or come twice, because you'll see, if you come night back to back, you'll see a different show. And we were just talking earlier, live theater changes with every performance. There is something that is different. We may have a spike mark where you have to stand, or a position you're supposed to be at when you talk about how you walk around and use a stage. We call that blocking. Well, you're supposed to conform to that blocking for every performance. It doesn't always happen, but again, the experience is different. What's really wonderful about the Langdon here is we seat 104 people. And when you move a production from a stage like at the Charlotte Performing Arts Center, with the venue seats a little over 800 people, to this, you look out and you don't see people at CPAC. Here, not only do you see the people, you do hear them unwrapping the candy, and you can hear them talking frequently to each other, like, what did he say? Or they don't understand. So as an actor, it's a different experience too. But most prefer the smaller venue just because of the intimacy.
I would think they could feel the feedback between audience
totally.
and performer to audience being so close that
even if there's just an audible response of silence,
yeah,
and to laughter, it's something you have to learn in theater, that if you have laugh lines that fall one upon the other, you need that audience to know how long to wait for that second line, because if they're still clapping and laughing, you don't want to give the line that they'll completely miss. So
Exactly.
this closeness, it's a whole different experience that most actors that we've had here have loved this small environment.
Wow, that's great. Now, Charlotte County is obviously an older community, yet the Charlotte Players have been involved with Kids on Stage and the Imagination Library. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Two wonderful programs of the Charlotte Players. Our Kids on Stage we started back in '07, and it's grown from a acting class at the Port Charlotte Library to what we have today. We've had to struggle through the last couple summers, of course, because of COVID.
Sure.
But we've still were able to have our offerings. And right now we work with about 200 kids each and every year with a couple different performances or acting classes or whatever we might have. Our wonderful Charlotte County Imagination Library, that's part of the Dolly Parton Literacy Program.
Yes.
We started that. Our first book was mailed out in March of 2012. And as of really this month, we have mailed out over 125,000 free books to preschoolers here in Charlotte County. It's a preschool program, so parents can, from the time a child is born to the time they reach the age of 5, they're entitled to a free book. And they have to live in Charlotte County, have a Charlotte County address. And it doesn't matter how many children you may have in that household under the age of 5, they can all start to create their possible library of 61 books, I think it is.
That's great.
So
yeah.
that's a whole nother business almost in and of itself. Because we're right now, the Charlotte County Public Schools have been wonderful in partnering with us. They estimate that preschoolers here in Charlotte County, there's probably about 5,000. And right now we just hit the 2,500 mark. That's what we're mailing each and every month. So our goal, of course, is like some counties around the country, is to be able to mail to every preschooler. But it takes lots of money to do that. The Dolly Parton Foundation is wonderful about the educators and the physicians that decide on what books should be mailed at what different age levels. But when it comes to the actual mailing, purchasing of the book and getting it in the hands of children, that now becomes our responsibility. So that price tag at 2,500 kids is a little over $5,000 every month to come up with. So those are the kind of things that keep me awake at night.
Now the Comedy for a Cause, if you can talk a little bit about that, as I know that's been an important fundraising effort. And how did that get started?
It was a wonderful brainchild of Marie LaBrosse, one of our past presidents here at the Charlotte Players. And she came to us about 10 years ago and said, I have an idea where we take individual community leaders, business people, and we throw them onto the stage to do improv. And I was like, I don't know about that. Well, Chris Constance, we all know, our local physician and county commissioner,
as well.
He thought it was a great idea. So they forged ahead, and we're now experiencing here in October our 9th annual.
Oh, wow.
Last year we had to go virtual for a year, but we're back. That'll be a wonderful event on October 15th at the Charlotte Harbor Event and Conference Center. And this actual group of people, they rehearse for a couple months. This year we did post, it's normally in September, we postponed it yet another month, but that's coming up, and we have a virtual auction that we started last year that also will continue. So we try whatever we can to keep the lights on and the doors open when it comes to fundraising. Instead of
dancing with the stars, it's sort of laughing with the stars.
That's right, exactly. And he's the director, so he works with them too during that rehearsal period.
Sure. Now, if you could give us, it's hard to describe maybe a typical day because there are no typical days, but what if we followed you around with a video camera, what might we see Sherrie Moody doing in a typical day?
You know, the last couple weeks have been certainly not monotonous because every day my list of things to do haven't gotten done. It's been other things. For instance, we are currently located here in an industrial park just north of Port Charlotte Town Center. And as a result, we have commercial vehicles that will park on our property. Well, we left at like 1 o'clock in the morning. We're show people. We stay here late. And by 6:30 in the morning, some large vehicle had driven behind our building, and because of its size, ripped down all of our lines, all of our Comcast, telephone, everything. So that's something I had to deal with. I came in here this morning, actually, and found that we've been hacked for the 3rd time.
Oh my gosh.
So as you came in the building, our IT people are here trying to figure out. Now, hackers think that because we accept credit cards, that we will have information. Well, in fact, we use a third party, so we contain none of it. But those kind of things, as executive director, go along with the production. about the October or so, we have as many as 6 different productions in some state. So as I tell people, it's a lot of, everybody remember Captain Kangaroo, probably too old for you.
No, I do remember that.
It's the spinning plates,
Yeah.
trying to keep them from crashing to the floor. So sometimes that's what I feel like on a daily basis.
Wow, yeah.
And people ask me if I act, and I say every day.
I can understand. Now, you mentioned a bit about paying royalties to play, and I think some people think, well, since most of the actors are volunteers, that a community theater production must be pretty economical, but there are obviously a lot of expenses. And what are some of the expenses in?
Royalties are the big one, surprisingly enough, over the COVID period when a lot of theaters, well, at some point shut down across the country. And we're talking about community theaters, equity theaters, Broadway type shows. And one would have thought that that might have had a bearing on reducing or maintaining the royalty costs. Not what we're finding out. They've gone up substantially. And even though they used to be based on the number of seats in the house, and I question that that's now the formula that they're using, because even though we seat 100 here, if we were to ask for royalties on a 400, 500 seat, it still comes back the same. So that has a huge effect on what the price tag's going to be for your patrons' tickets. So to give you some example, if you're doing some well-known musical, and I'm going to say something like My Fair Lady, one would expect to be well over $10,000 just for the royalty. That's just to hand you the paper and the music and only give you 60 days, perhaps 30 days in advance to have it. That would be based on probably somewhere between 15 and 20 performances. And then you build on top of that, because we do pay for all the staff involved. We pay for the artistic director, the choreographer, the music director, the stage manager, the costumer. So yeah, shows can get really expensive. If you look at the overhead of the building for a big musical like that, it's nothing to be over $40,000 before the first ticket is sold.
That's a lot of dollars.
It is. So we have had to change some of the companies that we deal with for what we call a straight play that we put here in the Langdon. Looking for ones who are willing to work with you, because we also have to book, as I explained, the play reading committee. We'll pick season 21, 22, 23 in November. So we have to book that far out, and a lot of theatrical royalty companies are reluctant to book out a year in advance because they don't know that somebody may want to do a big national tour. So it has its difficulties sometimes. It's gotten a lot more difficult in the last 10 years.
Sherrie, as executive director of the Charlotte Players, what do you find most rewarding about your position?
I'm going to give situations that we had during the COVID. We had described before we started here this afternoon some of the things that we did in order to allow our patrons to come in and feel safe. We bought expensive fogger machines and put up our acrylics and took people's temperatures. But we felt better about allowing people in our front door with those safety measures. And the response we got from patrons walking in the door, like, thank you so much for giving us a place that we could go.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this one woman who came in and she said, I want you to know, we stopped going to church, but we come to theater.
That's their their church. Yeah,
that's wonderful. But to know we are able to give that to the public here, that's such a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
Or the people that we've had, students that are really shy, introverted, that when we talk about theater providing the ability to learn life skills and just see them flower into people that can talk to the masses. I've never been one of those people that was shy about it, but I've seen people literally shake because they don't want to talk in front of people. So to see that change is just amazing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, are there any productions that you would dream about doing that you would love to have here, but maybe they're still?
Well, we have one. That was what I was talking about earlier, that we
Yeah.
had tried to get year after year after year. Well, last week, we just got the wonderful news that we can do Murder on the Orient Express, Agatha
wow.
Christie. And it's because it has been booked by Equity Theaters in Florida, so we had restrictions as far as geographically where we're located, and then also national tours, we haven't been able to. But this year we have been granted. We know we will do that in September of next year. That's how far out we are.
Yeah.
So it's September 22. And we know we can do it on the stage, but we are thinking about moving to another location. And that stage we know will allow us to do that show. So as we plan in the next year, we're thinking about this location, but also where we're talking about going. If it's okay with you, I'll divulge what we're talking.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everyone in the Charlotte County area here, certainly those in Punta Gorda, know where the older Punta Gorda Library is. It's on West Henry Street.
West Henry, right.
And that building has been unoccupied for 2 years now because of the new library was built. So the task right now, we've been doing our due diligence since about March and figuring out how this building might work. And I think we're close to making a decision. And who knows, maybe this time next year, we'll be sitting in Punta Gorda.
Wow, that is a big change.
It's great news. And it would increase our size to about 200 seats. That's our plan.
Now, what do you see in the future for community theaters? Are there any new trends coming up, or is it?
Certainly the way you do the business end, but as far as the theater, I don't think so. I don't see any real changes. COVID made changes. We had actors on set in mask, in clear masks for a long time. Hopefully that has gone away.
Let's keep our fingers crossed for that.
That's
one.
right. But no, I think the feeling one gets as an actor, as a patron, I don't think that's ever going away.
Yeah.
It's going to stay the same.
You really can't beat it.
That's right.
Any other medium can't offer that, I don't think.
That's right.
Well, Sherrie, I want to thank you for inviting me to
Oh,
the
I'm so
wonderful
glad you
stage
could come
here
to
at
our
Langdon
home.
Theater.
Yes.
And thank you for being a guest on Center Stage, Charlotte County.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Thanks.